Hey everybody, this is Brandon Ballantyne,
And this is Don King.
and welcome to another episode of the Mobile Talk Podcast.
And today, what we're talking about on Mobile Talk is how can you use video chat to connect with people that you just can't get in the same room with anymore? In fact, one of the reasons we're talking about this is, as you may be able to tell, we're in that position with Brandon Ballantyne. We're very glad Brandon is okay. If you tuned in a little bit earlier this week, you saw just a short video and audio podcast saying, I was supposed to hear from Brandon, hadn't heard from him, hope he's okay, that sort of thing. He just hadn't been able to get everything unpacked. So
Yeah, I was trapped under boxes.
trapped under boxes, beneath boxes, surrounded by boxes. And I'm kind of in that same position, just like the last time. I'm in the home office. And in fact, in our next recording, what we're going to be talking about is how do you set up for recording at home or in your office at your college, wherever it might be, when you just don't have a budget for it. You got to find a place to be able to record. That'll be coming up next time. But this time we're going to talk about these video chat solutions because each of them have their own advantages and disadvantages. We are pleased to be able to have Brandon continue as still officially right now co-host. When's your last day officially with the college, Brandon?
June the 10th will be the last day that I work at Pellissippi. And then I think we're going to do a contract for some period of time after that, actually.
Oh, okay, wonderful. It's first I'm hearing about that. I'm glad to hear that. So, and I didn't want to say too much about it with you not being able to get on with us last time we recorded. But if you want to tell folks where you're moving on to and why you're in, you can't tell just by looking, but you're in California.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about what's going on there. We didn't throw you out, right?
Right. Yeah, so last fall, my wife actually accepted a job at a company out here. She works at a studio in Los Angeles. So she's been here since September, and I finally decided we would put the house on the market and I would move out to join her. So we have an apartment in Santa Monica, real close to the beach, and I took a couple of weeks off to help with the move, which I don't know, you can tell in the background, I'm not totally done unpacking and organizing everything, but I'm getting a lot closer. And then here in a couple of days, I'm heading back to Tennessee to wrap up at the college. And then sometime shortly after June the 10th, I will be back out in California permanently, or at least for a few years.
Foreseeable future is what
Right.
I can do, yeah. And you mentioned in passing you went from a 3,000 square foot house to a 650 square foot.
It's quite a change.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat though. We chose an apartment that is just right in the middle of everything. I mean, I can walk to coffee shops, grocery stores. I'm not going to move my car out here with me, actually, which everybody that's from LA that I've told, I'm moving out without a car, they say, yeah, that's going to last about a week. But so far it's been a couple of weeks, and between the buses, the train that just opened near the apartment, and just the sidewalks and beautiful weather, I've been able to get just about everywhere I need to go, just by walking or occasionally calling an Uber, but it's not been too difficult, actually.
Okay, well, very good. Well, we miss you here, but glad things are working out that way for you.
Well, thanks.
So we're connecting right now via Google Hangouts. And of course, it's a particular form of Google Hangouts because we're doing the video podcast and the audio podcast by grabbing the audio stream called Hangouts on Air. This is not what the average person would be using. Mm-hmm. So what would you say would be the advantages and disadvantages of using Google Hangouts if you just want to visit with old friends or relatives? Obviously, we still live in Knoxville. My oldest daughter lives in Seattle, Washington. Why would we use Google Hangouts instead of something else? And what are the problems with it, would you say?
Well, I think probably the biggest benefit, to me anyway, with Hangouts, if you already have a Gmail account, you already have access to Hangouts. It's part of Google's ecosystem of apps. If you use the Chrome browser, you don't have to use any fancy plugins or download any additional apps to join a Hangout session. You just fire up the browser and accept the invitation that comes to you. which I know we've played around a little bit with Skype and a few others. Most of the others either have a dedicated app that you have to download, which can be kind of troublesome sometimes, or they require some sort of browser plugin that you have to download and configure, usually restart your browser. So some of the other solutions, to me anyway, it's a little more difficult to just jump right into a session. You have to do a little bit of planning ahead of time.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. What's the biggest drawback of Hangouts? I mean, just from my perspective, you and I are obviously fairly techie, and it took us a little bit to figure out how to get on and make the thing do what we wanted to do. Can you have some or give some perspective of, say, the average user with a Gmail account who wants to try it out? How hard is it going to be for them to figure it out?
I don't think it'll be too hard. Of course, we make things difficult for ourselves because we're talking, streaming, and recording all at the same time. So we're using just about everything that the Hangouts platform has to offer. I think for regular users, it won't be nearly as complicated as what we're trying to do here. The only issue that I've run across just in more personal discussions on Hangouts and everything is knowing the email address to send the invitation to. For example, if you sent me an email to my school account, that's actually not the account that I use with most of the Google services. So you always send it to my Gmail address, which makes it a lot easier for me. But if you didn't know that, it would be a little bit more difficult. I'd have to sign out of one account and sign into another, things like that.
Okay. And I could see where that could be a little problematic. Now, let's contrast that with a fairly new player in this space that I'd say its greatest strength is its simplicity, but it also has some downsides too. That is appear.in. That's APPEAR.IN. It's not .com or .net or anything like that. All you have to do with that is just go to the site. I mean, if you just want to do a one-time thing, you can just use the random room name that they will give you when you log in. If you want to claim a space as yours, you can do that. But basically, you just run it through your browser, you turn on your webcam, you turn on your microphone. Have you ever tried Appear.in? I can't remember if you and I have ever been on there together or not.
I've played with it. I think that's the one that integrates with Slack, isn't it?
Now that you mention it, I have seen something about that. You're a bigger Slack user than I am, so I have not tried that.
Yeah, I've never really used it for an actual talk or anything, but I did investigate it. I had an idea to teach a class through Slack, and I wanted to have virtual office hours integrated somehow through video conferencing, and I think Appear.in was the way that Slack did that.
Okay, and that would
it was super easy. I really liked it.
That would be a real advantage of that, and I mean, I think for the average user, just the ability to just kind of do it. Now, the downside is that with Google Hangout, and for that matter with Skype, if all you have available is text, you can interact with somebody via text via those two. That will not work with Appear.in. You've got to at least have a microphone.
Okay.
It's a little more limited, too, as far as the browsers that it will work with. It's got to be Chrome or Firefox or Opera.
Okay.
And to really work, it's got to be Chrome. So if you're on a Mac, Safari is not going to work. If you're on a PC and God help you, you're using Internet Explorer, then you're going to need to get one of those others just to be able to take part in it. But Appear.in does have its own app, and since we want to keep the audio accessible, I'm not going to just show it on the screen, but you can just do that app. And you don't have the full capability, but you can take part in a virtual meeting that way.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, and I'm getting a message, by the way, from Mark Fuentes. He's having computer trouble, but I think he can get in here through Hangouts through audio only. We'll see.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
Tell him worth a try. And we'll let people kind of see behind the scaffolding here as we're trying to put together our thing here. I sent him an invitation for Google Hangout, and you heard Brandon say a little earlier that that's kind of how Google Hangouts works, is you start it and send an invitation. With Appear.in, you set up your room, and then somehow you send the link to that room to the people that you want to meet with. Text message, email, something like that. So the grandfather in this space is Skype. And I should have looked up. I didn't think to do it. How long has Skype been around? I'm calling him the grandfather. I think they probably are the first ones in this space, are they not?
I don't know. They were the first that was really good anyway.
Yeah, that's probably the way to put it. And of course, they've we joke about this, but it's only half joking. They have since been acquired by Microsoft. That, of course, gave them a whole lot more reach. Downside for Skype is that you have to have an app for it, whether you're on PC or Mac or whatever. But the good news is that they do have those apps. Apps, obviously, for cell phones, and I suspect there are more platforms available, obviously iOS and Android. They may have a Windows Phone version. They may have a BlackBerry. I'm not even sure about that, but they're the most universally available, I think.
Yeah, and, you know, we're getting Skype for Business at Pellissippi in the fall. And so that may make Skype, you know, something to check out a little bit further. The Skype for Business, you have some extra features that you don't have in just the regular Skype application. So
yeah. And I mean, it's worth mentioning Skype has a free tier and the business tier. You can do a lot with the free tier. You can get multiple people on for audio with the free Skype. I think for video, it's just 1-to-1.
Okay.
Google Hangouts, I'm struggling with how to put this. Vast majority of Google users are free. There is Google Apps for Business. Hangouts is part of that, but I think the Hangouts part, I'm not sure there's really, well, I'll put it this way. I have seen where Google Hangouts for free, I think you can get up to 10 people on there with a video call. And Google Apps for Business, you can get up to 25.
Okay.
Appear.in, as far as I know right now, is just free. Have you seen anything different about that?
I haven't, but I've also not researched.
Yeah. So, you know, I could be wrong about that. We've just been using the free version. So Skype for Business would allow you to get multiple people on with a video call.
Yeah, we actually...
and there's a phone number that you can have associated with you with that, I think, also.
There is, and the business, Skype for Business integrates with Active Directory, I think it's another Microsoft product. So it ties in with your calendar and your college email account and everything.
Okay. And I see that Mark has joined us. He's having computer problems, so I don't think he has a camera. But I believe his audio is working. Can you hear us okay, Mark?
I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
We sure can. It's going to be a little odd for people who watch this on video because when it goes to you, it's just a black screen. So, folks, if you're watching this as opposed to listening to it, your computer's fine. Mark doesn't look that way, okay? It's just a black screen. So glad you could get on here with us.
It has been an interesting week.
Interesting in the curse sort of way, I would assume.
Yes.
Okay, well, and Brandon has had a similar kind of week. As you know, he's moved to California and mostly gotten things unpacked. I don't know, can you see him, or are you truly audio only?
I can see the both of you on screen, but evidently my camera's not working.
Okay. Very good. Well, we're actually close to the end of this particular one. We're going to record another one in just a moment, so hang around, and we will get you involved in that one. Brandon, we've kind of gone long at this point. Do you think we ought to just go ahead and wrap this?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe we should just mention a couple of other services that are at least worth investigating at some point, even if we don't talk about them.
And Mark, what we're talking about is video chat solutions. We've said Google Hangouts. We've talked about Skype for Business. We've talked about Appear.in. If you know about one of those, or if you know that there is, because I know you're a Windows Phone user, if you know there's an app for one of these, be sure and chime in before we sign off. Okay?
Okay.
So what are some of the other players you would think of, Brandon?
Well, there's if you're talking to Mac users or iOS users, there's always FaceTime.
Okay.
And then I haven't. I've been kind of without a computer here as I've been getting everything set up in the new apartment. But at Google's developer conference not long ago, they announced a couple of upcoming apps that are, I think, set to be released in the fall maybe. And one of them is Google Duo, I think, which is going to be a competitor for FaceTime and maybe Skype and things like that. So I don't know a lot about it, but I've seen some screenshots and it looks really easy to use. So
does it sound like, and I realize it's very early, but does it sound like the Google Duo will be available just on Android, or are they going to try to roll that out beyond that?
They've said it will work for iOS and Android. I don't know if they're going to have a desktop app.
Okay, and that would be that'll be an interesting comparison, because the FaceTime thing. My wife and I use FaceTime all the time. We both have iOS devices. I'm working on a Mac now. It works fine with that. And of course, the downside is that if you want to talk with somebody like Mark on a Windows phone, you just can't do FaceTime that way.
No, Skype does work well with the Windows phones, though. Being a Microsoft product, it's pretty well integrated with the Windows iOS or with the Windows OS.
Okay, is it a separate app, or is it something that's just integrated with the Windows phone?
It's something that is now integrated with the Windows phone under Phone 10. If you have 8.1 or earlier, you'd have to download it separately. It did work with 8.1 because I have tried it, but it works a lot. It's a lot less flaky with Windows 10, or at least so far.
Okay. And one thing I'm wondering about as we're talking about this, especially with Mark, is there a Google Hangouts app that would run on a Windows phone to where even though your webcam on the computer is having issues right now, you might be able to join us on the next recording?
Let me check and see if there is.
Okay. So we'll check on that in between recordings, and we will get you involved in the next episode one way or another.
Okay.
Okay. So, folks, seeing the paint drying here a little bit, that's okay, because in our next program, we're going to talk about how college teachers in particular can use desktop video. You don't have to have a fancy studio. You don't have to have expensive equipment. Do it in your office at the college. Do your recordings at home. Obviously, Brandon and I are home. You can't tell for sure, but Mark is at home right now. So we'll be talking about exactly those kind of practical issues when you join us for the next episode. For right now, we're going to back out of here. This is Mobile Talk. You can get in touch with us by dropping an email to dking, that's D-K-I-N-G, at pstcc.edu. You can follow us on Twitter at ps_mobs, that's M-O-B-S. And let me see, what else is it, Brandon? There's some other contact I usually give. Oh, the blog. Yes, our Mobile Fellows blog is really the central part of all of this. So you can find us there at blogs.pstcc.edu/Mobile Fellows. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Mobile Talk.